be honest. Have you ever been ghosted in your job search? You've had a few conversations, maybe even a couple interviews, and then they go radio silent. Today, we're talking about why this happened. It's likely not because of you, and what to do to prevent it from happening moving forward. If you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and bell to be notified every time I release a new video to help you land the job more quickly and confidently. And if you're new here, hello, welcome. I'm Kristen Zavo, a career coach with 15 plus years of traditional corporate experience, including time in investment banking, consulting, finance, strategy, and marketing. I help job seekers to not just land the job, but to build a career and life they absolutely love. Before we talk about why ghosting happens and what to do about it, let's start by defining it. Similar to the way this term is used in the context of dating, ghosting is when a recruiter or an employer doesn't call you back when they said they would, and or they go radio silent in response to your outreach. Now, this can happen at any point in the job search, but it's most hurtful when we've had several conversations and or interviews. And it can shake even the most confident of candidates, even though it's most likely not even about them. Now, there are several reasons that one might be ghosted in their job search. First off, most simply, they might just be really busy. You as a job candidate, your job search is a huge part of your life. For the hiring manager or for the recruiter who's juggling a lot of candidates, it's just one thing in their already busy day. And especially when it comes to hiring managers, I can speak from experience myself. When you finally get the budget to be able to hire a team, you're already overwhelmed. You're already drowning in tasks. You're already doing the job of more than one person. And so even though you desperately need to hire this person on your team, the irony is you have the least time to go through the steps, to review the resume, to have the interviews, to get back to people. So many times it really could be as simple as they're just really busy and juggling a lot. Another common reason, and this is very human, people don't like to have tough conversations. So many times they ghost you because they don't want to tell you they went with someone else. They don't want to make you feel bad. It could also be that they legally can't tell you the truth. Besides being busy, it could also be that they're avoiding having a tough conversation. It's hard to tell someone no. It's hard to give that feedback. And it could also be that they legally can't tell you the reason that they're not continuing forward with you in the process. It could also be that the situation changed. There might be budget cuts, layoffs coming up, a hiring freeze. I remember a time when I got all the way to the end of the interview process and I was sure I had the job. I literally sat next to the CEO of this consulting firm and he looked me in the eye and he said, "The job is yours." And then crickets. It wasn't until nearly a year later that I found out the reason I never heard back, the reason I was ghosted, was because another firm was considering buying them out and told them to cease all communication, which included communication to potential new hires. I tell you this story because many times it's a situation that has nothing to do with you, your performance, or your value. It could also be that they offered the job to an internal candidate. It could be that the job was never even available in the first place. Yes, if you want me to make a video on all the reasons an employer would post a job that isn't actually available, type fake job in the comments. No matter the actual reason for the ghosting, whether they were busy, they're avoiding a tough conversation, they legally can't tell you the truth, the situation changed, they offered it to someone else, maybe the job wasn't even available in the first place. No matter the actual reason, the key here is for you to remember there are countless explanations for why this could be happening that literally have nothing to do with you, your value, or your abilities. Now that we know what ghosting is, why it could be happening, let's cover 5 things that you can do to prevent or at least limit the amount of times that you experience ghosting in your search. The first step to avoid getting ghosted in your job search and to land the job faster is to do your best to stand out, which means you're not just applying to any old job that you could fit the qualifications for. You're not going into the interview interview with the intention of regurgitating your resume, you're actually taking the time to do the work to say, first off, what is the job I want? What is the ideal job? Second of all, how can I position myself to make it abundantly clear, super easy for any recruiter or hiring manager to see that I'm the best fit for the role, even if my experience is not traditional or typical. And this takes a little more work on the front end to figure out how to position yourself in that way, how to connect the dots, but it's absolutely worth it because you're going to show up more confidently. You're going to stand out. Your stories are going to ring true and you will be memorable. Now, a lot goes into that. I have an entire course for that, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. Number 2 has to do with relationships. So of course, the relationships that you build throughout the interview process with the recruiter, with HR, with the hiring manager, but also and especially the relationships that you're building before and after the interview, or even when there's not a job available. In my work with clients, we talk about networking for the long run a lot. And that means that when you've had conversations, when you've shared your goals and your experience, when you've helped the people that you're networking with, you become a real person versus candidate number 13. The more and more that we are a real person to someone, the harder it is for them to just completely ghost. And even if the hiring manager or the recruiter ghosts, if you have relationships, you have an insider who can perhaps shed some light on what's really going on. Now, the third way that you can avoid getting ghosted in the job search is what you do in the interview. So you're coming to the interview prepared. You're going to be asking questions about the company, about the culture, about the goals, and specifically about how you in that role will be helping them reach those goals, about who you in that role will be interacting with. When you ask questions in this way, in order for them to answer you, they have to actually imagine you in that role. You can see when they're answering the question, you can get a feel for, get an energy check of, are they invested? Are they actually, when they answer you, answering it in a way that is personalized to you? That is always a good sign. They might say something like, we're really working on XYZ initiative, and I think your specific experience in A, B, and C will really help us with that. And so these will give you cues in addition to how you're getting along. You will have these tangible clues to see how you're actually doing. Now, if you're really gutsy, you could even ask the question, and this is super controversial, but you could ask the question, based on everything we've talked about, do you have any hesitations about me joining the team? Now, I know, don't come for me in the comments, or by the way, go ahead and come for me in the comments. I know this is a very controversial question, but when it is asked from a place of groundedness, knowing your value, and really just being proactive and showing interest, it could be a great way to get some honest feedback in real time that maybe a hiring manager and interviewer might not be willing to share with you if it were over email. Tip number 4 is to follow up. I know that sounds obvious, but you would be surprised how many candidates I talk to who are just waiting to hear back because they don't want to appear needy or desperate. But the fact is, in a job search, being proactive always reflects well on you. I'm not telling you to harass these people every day, multiple times a day, but certainly asking them in the interview, what is the timeline? What are next steps? And is it okay if you reach out? And if so, who to? And then that way you can follow up every week, every couple weeks to be sure that you're reiterating your interest in the role, seeing if there's anything else they need from you, and just in general, staying top of mind. Tip number 5 is the most important and the one that I'm willing to bet you are most likely to ignore. So listen up. Managing your energy and your nervous system, really watching the stories that you're making up about why they're not getting back to you. So when you hear that loop and you know the familiar loop, I'm not good enough, I must have done a bad job, you're overanalyzing everything you said. That's when you know you're caught up in the stories. And this is an opportunity for you to ask yourself, do I actually know that that's true? Or is this really just reflecting back my fears and insecurity? When this happens, I want you to catch yourself and stop it. You might even say something like, not helpful to that inner critic or that voice that is really looking to beat you up. In addition to watching the storytelling that you're doing, I want you to get really good at self care. Job search, by its very nature, it's vulnerable, it's transformative, it brings up all our stuff. And so it's even more important that we're coming from a full cup, that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're doing things outside of the job search to make us feel good and to make us feel confident. And a final piece of this is that you never want to rely on one job, one person, one company. Don't put any opportunity on a pedestal. It's so important, even and especially when you really get excited about a job, to have lots of irons in the fire, to always be networking, or as I like to say, always be connecting, having conversations, looking at new opportunities, because the more things that you have going on, the more opportunities that you are in discussions about, the less you are going to be hyper focused on that one job or that one person who didn't get back to you. And this is a way to kind of bring back your power so that you're not, back to the dating analogy, it's not like you're waiting by the phone for this one job to call, because if they don't work out, you have a ton of other opportunities. I'd love to hear from you now. Have you ever been ghosted in your job search? And what's one tip that you will implement from today's video? Also, be sure to check out my other job search videos, as well as tons of free resources in the description below. I'll see you next time.